What's up, Trailblazers? My name is ShawnSetGO, and today we're doing a little bit of a different video. For those of you who've been on the stream recently, we've been playing Honkai Star Rail for the very first time, and so we've got a little bit of progress, and so I thought I would do a first impressions, talk about what I think of the game currently, some things from a brand new player playing in 2024 that I think are important, as well as kind of sharing some of my thoughts as far as things that I don't as much like, but that being said, I don't want this to come off as being overly negative towards the game. I do still enjoy the game for all its unique qualities. I haven't played a lot of gotchas, but this has definitely been a very interesting gotcha to try, and one that I do hope to eventually catch up to current content and really keep that moving forward. But I wanted to bring forward a few points that I kind of noticed that I think are unique to my experience, most likely, but also if this is any sort of shared experience that we could sort of both, you and I both share in, then maybe this can be something that can change down the line for future players who also play this game. And maybe as well to improve those first impressions for anybody. Because I honestly feel like games, when you first see them, when you first play them, it really matters. Those first couple hours, that first chapter, the first chunk of story that you progress through, you really want to hook people in. And so I think it's really important that we talk about some of these things. So without further ado, the first thing I want to talk about is the tasks. I think whether you like it or not, whether you like those things filling up your time, I think that there's a huge number of tasks to complete within the game. And I think at first it seems exciting because there is so much to do, where you're able to complete side quests, you have daily missions, you have the story quest, you have things like the you have like the event notes that you can go through, some that you can actually play, others you can really just look at because it says unlocked after a certain thing. But when you're a first player and you see all this stuff, it becomes immediately overwhelming. There are some things you can click, there's some things you can't click. It's great to have these things, and I think it's really interesting if you're someone who really likes to fill all your time with something. But for me, it does become overwhelming when there is just so much to click on and do right out the gate. Something I really liked about Wuthering Waves when I first started playing is that while there was a lot to do, it was introduced at a time where I could fit that into my bandwidth. I think there's only so much mental bandwidth anyone can fit into their game. And really, Honkai Star Rail doesn't put on a lot of gates saying, hey, you can't do this. They want to show you all the things that are available. But for me, it just becomes immediately overwhelming that there is so much to do in the game, or there's just so much on my list of things to click and check out and see. And there's so many little exclamation points that it just gets overwhelming. So I think that can be overwhelming, but I think that how that could be fixed is just simply introducing them at times when they're appropriate, simply other than just having them there right out the gate. Now, the buttons have definitely increased over time, but it's hard to notice when there are so many here already. So I can't tell you which ones have been added over time or which ones have already been there. It just feels like they've all been here since the beginning, and there's been a lot of them. So additionally, so point number 2, I think that while this can be caught in a number of things, I think for a number of people, they're okay with sort of the catch-all being the standard banner here. I think that while this is okay, if you're interested in these characters when you're playing as for the first time, I think it's very overwhelming when you have all these characters you can choose from. Additionally, when you pull from, you for the most part get light cones, and so when you get all these light cones, some of them are useful, a lot of them aren't. And in reality, at least from what I'm learning here, you want to get the light cones from the simulated universe, because Herta's store has some of the best, from the tier list anyways, have some of the best light cones that I've seen in the game. So the standard banner, to me, I think is positioned incorrectly. And what I mean by that is that I think the standard banner, the way it should work, is that it should be based off of at what point you're in the story. Now, granted, everybody that's here, I've seen them in the story. I'm actually at the part where I just met Bailu in the chapters 2 story. But for the rest of these, some of them that I got. I got this character in the warp. What's the name? Yang King. Got them in the warp. I really don't know like what they're about at all. Like, and so, and like Welts as well, like, you know, getting a character like that when I don't really I haven't really seen really much of him until just recently. It didn't make a lot of sense. So I honestly, I think what needs to happen is, depending on what point you are in the story, that should be sort of the featured banners that are being shown. I really personally liked whenever I was when I was first playing, I really liked that I got was it Saval, uh right around the time that happens, and so that was really great for me. And then another one that's free, Natasha was a great character to get at the perfect time, and it really, like, that to me was important because it's like I saw her in the story, I was able to play her, it just had a good feeling attached to it. So it's not that this system is totally broken. I just think there would be another way to make players feel better right out the gate. I think something that is really great about this game is that you do get free characters a lot. I just unlocked Quinque. Even though I don't really know anything about her, like, you know, a free quantum character is great, but until that point, I only had Lynx. I got Lynx randomly. Now it's great to have an additional support. I love having multiple supports in a game like this. It's not like Wuthering Waves where you really have one main support you're looking for, and you just fit that into your team because they're the best support. Actually, Lynx is great, and having a quantum character is really important. But having these characters comes at a cost, because you have characters like getting these free characters comes at a cost, in my opinion, because you get a character like Dr. Ratio. Currently in the story, I need the majority of my characters to be at level 50, but I can't even ascend Dr. Ratio to really, even though he's such a great character and he still does great, I can tell he's starting to fall behind, and I can't do really anything about it because it's locked. His materials for ascension are locked. And so I think that while these free characters are great, I think the flaws start to become more apparent. And then you start to realize, I'm getting these characters too soon, or I'm getting these characters, but I don't know necessarily a team setup. I have too many characters to know which ones are the ones to pick. Of course, you can look at the tier list, you know, pick up what you will, and it'd be like, well, you should just know the tier list. I think as a first impressions from a new perspectives, like I'm trying out Luca, but I'm not really liking Luca, despite him being, I think he's on higher on the tier list, at least higher than some of the other characters I have. But I don't really like his abilities. I don't really like how he plays. It's not that interesting. Then again, I don't really like the play style of physical. It's not my favorite. Same thing with wind. I just haven't seen a great wind, but I like quantum. I like ice. I like lightning. I like fire. I like the way some of these play, just not all of them. So it's weird to get characters like this sometimes, and you're just like, I don't know what you're for yet. Like, I haven't really seen anything about it, so it just didn't make any sense to me. So third point, I think that this is additional on the point of the Dr. Ratio point, is that the farming for essential materials just it immediately starts out of the gate too strong. I think that while it is nice to have the ability to farm for materials, it is kind of frustrating that even though I'm progressing through the story, I'm not getting the materials enough to at least progress through the basics. I'm still having to do this daily and burn out stamina out the gate. When I was playing Wuthering Waves, I was able to get basically everything I needed without having to worry about burning stamina or anything like that, or doing daily missions and stuff like that. Honkai Star Rail, out the gate, you want to start doing these and getting materials, as well as putting characters on assignments, which I had no idea about. I still don't know what all these are for. I just look at the numbers and go, oh, I don't have a lot of those, and I just put something into that. I usually just do these two for light cone and characters XP, but it's just so much things that you need to farm out the gate, and I'm like, why am I not just getting this from the story and at least getting enough to build one, maybe two teams? It seems like I've been constantly behind to where I need to burn all that stamina. And I know, by the way, I know I had a lot of like shards, and I know I had a lot of stamina. I don't feel like burning all that stuff yet, because I don't feel like I would spend it on the right things. I would probably spend it on the wrong thing, because I don't have a lot of experience in what is the best thing to do. I know I have a lot of reserved trailblaze power in this case. So a great example of what I mean is if you go into the store and you go into the Starlight Exchange, there's some great light cones in there, I'm sure. I mean, these all look fantastic. But at the same time, they cost 600, and it looks like if I would want to do anything with this, I'd probably want to buy some Star Rail passes over getting some light cones. So so I don't want to spend on the wrong thing by spending too quickly. So I wait till the time I know exactly what I'm wanting to get. If I'm not able to cross things, then I'll start doing some warps and pulling for certain characters. Now, I do like, so this just kind of divert and switch over. I do like the combat and I do like the break system. So something that I am loving is that there is elements that you can build into a certain character. And then once you go into an encounter, so once I go into a fight, I can go into it knowing what I'm about to approach. That to me is a lot better than some turn-based games where immediately you'd be facing something and you don't have the option to choose out your team because you have to do it before the game even starts. I think the game that I would always play as a kid was like Fire Emblem. I think Fire Emblem was that way, where it's like you have to pick your team before, and so like you feel like whenever you're struggling, you're like, oh well, I can't really back out now. I'm too in too deep. So having these options to me is really great. But not every encounter is like this, and a lot of times finding mobs in random areas can be very deceitful. You'll find a random mob and it'll have imaginary, wind, quantum, electric, and then you go to it and it's like, oh yeah, this one has one of those. The two side mobs have this, but really all of them have quantum. So not being able to see what mobs have like before encountering them, I feel like increases the amount of times that I have to readjust my teams after retreating or retrying. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely happens with some of the elite mobs. The other thing is, and this is what I said before, I know I'm not unlocking characters immediately, but because certain characters fill certain roles in an important way, and it's really like it's not that the characters are weak, it's that they fill that role and nobody else can take that role. Even though you have a 4-person team, often my imaginary slot is locked down. Like I already have one character locked down because there's no way any other character is going to meet the damage, even on breaks, than Dr. Ratio is. And so it locks a character down. I like that I'm able to pick between these two supports. I don't know if it's because I got lucky and got an additional support on top of my free one, but that's already a lockdown space as well. And so really I have two choices. I have to pick most likely like a AoE type character, someone like Herta, someone like Serval. So like those are great characters, but for the most part, I usually have to pick Dan Heng, and I'm not a big fan of him, but nobody else I have is Wind. So a lot of characters get locked down into this, and this is kind of a consequence of the break system, is that you have to have characters once it starts to get more challenging, once you fall behind a little bit and you need to level stuff up, to the point where even though it's not like some gachas where I feel like I have to totally change everything I'm doing, I do feel like it does lock down some of those units to where it's not a lot of flexibility for you to choose, because for the majority, like before I got Lynx, everything had quantum, and I'm like, well, I don't have anything quantum. Now I finally have Quinque, but like why didn't I get something sooner? It felt like I wasn't getting characters that matched the weaknesses of the enemies I was facing. And if I had Serval to fill like one quality, then I would absolutely like this. Then I throw her in there for sure, and I throw in my healer, but then I would need somebody else to fill in all the other 3 qualities as well, because you want everybody to have break qualities unless they're a support, someone like maybe like Asta who could boost other team members. So it just feels like a lot of characters are like in these forced lockdown positions. So and that to me kind of limits your creativity right out of the beginning, which I don't think is what you should be doing in a game like this. But this is to say, this is on top of this point, but this is my 4th point. Characters like Dan Heng, if it wasn't for the fact they have weakness, they really lack versatility in my opinion. I'm not saying that every character needs a single target and an AoE ability, but I think that if your abilities like if your abilities focus on having a single target ability and then it really just does damage, or the only time you're using it is when you don't have your skill, when you don't have your E, then why am I using that ability? So like this is the exact example of Dan Heng. Like the only time I use his Q is I'm using it when I don't have his skill, and that to me is like not the point. I think that not enough times do characters have versatility in their kits. It's the same way with Dr. Ratio with his. the only time you're going to use his basic attack is when he doesn't have his skill, because his talent is so strong. And so I feel like that's not how basic attacks should work. Basic attacks should be something that helps you to use, like, you should be able to pick between your Q or your E effectively, not just for the skill that the E has, obviously, for dealing damage, but something in the strategy of it all. And that's why I feel like they lack versatility, at least in my current state of the game. It feels like a lot of characters' Qs are not really built out. This isn't every character, don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of characters' basic attacks are very basic. And of course, that's in the name. I'm not. And I know there's irony in that, but I feel like I'm just pressing E's or saving E's so I can get off a heal or something like that. And that to me is not how it should work. And I feel like those Q abilities should be something that builds upon. That way, when you use your E, it's something either different or building up to that E. That way, when you're saving it, there's a reason to, other than just damage. I talked about currency overload a bit, but I think that the other point I wanted to make with that is that currencies, I think it's unfortunate with assignments as well as doing some of these daily quests. When you complete them, I'm not really getting a whole lot in these, to the point where I have to repeat them over and over and over again. And I don't know if it's because I have to do it so many times just to make like level 10 levels of progress, but the sheer quantity that I have to do these, even though I'm doing at my max capable level currently, makes it to where it becomes less and less fun. And the fact that it's usually just a basic combat encounter with a certain types of weaknesses, but there's not really any uniqueness to the challenges. I wish they were different challenges and different things that you can do other than just battles. I feel like that's a missed opportunity to have like interesting ways of farming materials. And I'm not really seeing that currently. So I really hope that's something that can be modified in time to where these are actually fun and interesting to do. Even if it's just fun mini games and things like that, I don't want to do just combat encounters for all of these things. It gets to be overwhelming. So that's something that I hope changes. And another thing, I mean, I've talked about this before, the amount of overload. Like I've found this menu, but I struggled to find this menu at first, especially for my dailies. And I know about this specifically because Wuthering Waves taught me about this. Like you're sort of, you're building your progress. So does AFK Journey as well. But some of these, I'm like, what are these for? Like someone in chat was telling me like, yeah, you want to start farming these because you want to get these materials because they're going to start getting higher and higher. And I'm like, oh geez. Like I'm already seeing this as well. And I'm like, this is so much. And so for me, like a lot of these items, while personally, I get what it's showing you, it's just showing me too much too soon that I'm just like, do I need to start farming these like now, later, or like if you're showing me and it's locked, really, like please don't don't show all this stuff to me. I'm getting confused. So, we talked about light cones a bit, but I think we covered enough about light cones in my feelings on light cones. But I think ultimately, I think that there should be a way when you're crossing through the game, not just to get the characters that match along with the story, the current stage in the story, maybe as like a limited banner for like your current stage in the story. But I think as well as light cones, I think that you should be able to focus pull certain light cones within that standard banner or a limited banner that match the characters that you would be pulling for, because there is a tier list of light cones and there is a series of light cones that are just, they don't match on any tier list or builds. And I know you could say like, well, you don't necessarily need a light cone to be great. You just need it to be workable. But I feel like any gacha, you don't want to be wasting materials on a less than optimal light cone for a character. For example, like I'm using this for Dr. Ratio. I don't want to invest more into it currently because I want to get a better light cone before I invest more into a light cone. gotchas when you're playing free to play, you just have limited resources. And now that I know about the simulated universe having the store and having those light cones, I'll definitely be farming that and adding that to my routine. I just wish it wasn't something that I had to, now I need to do something outside of the story. I feel like there's a lot of things that are trying to pull you out of doing the main story so you can farm and level up your characters. But it's to the point where it's like, I started doing this almost from the beginning. Like the moment I entered it, like the moment I met Cocolia, I started doing these dailies because I noticed like, oh, these things are available, even though it didn't show me any of it. It just started to become available. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I guess I'm ridiculously behind now. So a lot of these things I'm learning as I go, but I don't like that it's constantly trying to pull me out of the story to the point where like I'm like resistant to pulling out of the story to do these things. I know if I do them, it's going to take the rest of my day farming to get to the stage where I can do these on my dailies and then add it to my routine. That way it's like I can do my dailies, I can do my materials farming, and then I can also farm for my big light cones and characters and stuff like that. It just seems like so much to be putting on a person when you're first playing a game. And I think for people who are well versed in gacha games, it's not a problem. But I think when you're first playing a game like this, or you've never played Honkai Star Rail, I think you'll feel it too. So if at all possible, some of my solutions for the light cones is just like with echoes and weathering waves, is the ability to craft light cones based off of either the light cones you use, maybe based off of the rarity of the light cone, or how much what was it called, like superimposition, what level, you know, for like an RNG modifier. But I think my big suggestion for fixing a lot of the early game woes and getting the characters that don't really make sense in the story at the moment is having characters that match the current stage in the story that you're in. If not, you know, I mean, getting Calcharo in the game when we don't know at all what like Calcharo is as a character, it's like more understandable because we don't have anything on him, but there's nothing like hinting at there's more. Every time I set up my team and I put Serval and Links in the same team, they're like best, like they're like best of friends, best bros, like almost like a sister relationship. And I'm like, wait, what's this? Like, I don't understand. There's so much, I guess, lore behind it that you feel like you're just actively missing out on something. So that's my feelings on it. I mean, I hope this resonated with you guys, or maybe you, when you first started playing, you're like, oh, well, all these things were introduced carefully over time, and they weren't all here when I first started playing. But now that they are, and all these options are here, it's very overwhelming. And so I hope to play more of this. I hope to catch up on the story. I do enjoy the game a lot. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a like. I do stream regularly at ShawnSetGO. All my social medias is ShawnSetGO as well. I've been playing gacha games for a little bit now, and I'm trying to play some Zenless Zone Zero on top of Weathering Waves, on top of Honkai Star Rail. So I'm kind of like piecing my time with whatever I like the most. And this is definitely one of that I've really liked the most story-wise. The chapter 1 story ending was amazing. I love the boss fights in this. They feel impactful. There is challenges with this. It's not just like it's not just spam and hitting. Like, there is strategy to it. And I do like in the AFK journey, you call it deficit pushing. I do like that there is situations where you can do better depending if you know the strategies of certain characters. If you know if that one character boosts another character, you know, there is ways to do it, and there is a skill ceiling, and it's much higher than I realized, you know, and that's amazing. So there's a lot of really great things about the game. I hope to be impressed. I hope to that things like this, you know, become more understanding. Like, I understand them better over time. So I really do. So I'm going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed the video. And as per always, may fortune favor your journey. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.